So just tell us a little bit about how that, I know you said that day changed your life. So can you tell us a little bit about that and how it how you got called out there and what exactly happened when you got out there?
I wasn't even supposed to have been working that day, but
He's got lucky you.
yeah, I was actually in training on patrol at the time.
Okay.
And I should have been off on Sunday, but my FTO, my field training officer, Corporal Stewart, had a softball tournament the day before. And so because of that, he had chosen, instead of just taking the day off, he was going to work Sunday to kind of switch shifts around, make up for it. And because I was his trainee, I got dragged along.
Wow.
And it was
lucky
actually,
you.
Yeah, it was actually my last shift with him. I was about to move on to phase 2. I had only started my training a few weeks earlier.
Oh my goodness.
So
you were brand new out of the academy, or had you
no,
been doing
at that
else?
point, I had already worked about 2 years in the jail.
Oh, okay.
So I'd been in the jail a couple of years. I finally made it onto patrol, and then I was 3 weeks into my patrol training.
Wow.
So yeah.
What
Sunday,
a crazy first case.
Yeah, it was kind of a big. I had a couple good-sized things during my patrol training, but yeah, this was definitely the biggest.
Yeah. So talk to us about it going out there and how it all started and how that kind of happened.
Yeah, so it was about 1,500 hours because evening shift was starting to come on. And Stuart and I were just kind of up in the North Springfield area. That area is kind of the District 1, District 2 area for Greene County.
Okay.
And we were just kind of hanging out in that area, waiting our time until we could go to the office and complete our reports and leave for the day.
Right.
And as all of the other evening shift cars were starting to call in and say they were on duty, one of them got dispatched out to this check well-being. And Stuart said something about, I know this guy, he just got on duty. He's, his house is out a little ways. It'll take him some time to get there. We're right here. We'll just go ahead and take it. It's just a check well-being.
Wow.
Wow.
You need to go play the lottery.
Retrospectively, just to check well-being. So he goes ahead and gets on the radio, and of course I have no say in this. I was like, man, I just want to get off. Can I just get done with work?
Right.
Like we were about to get off early, because we didn't have many reports to do. But so yeah, he said, no, we'll go ahead and we'll take this. Calls into dispatch, lets them know. All right, so we're en route. And we get out there, and Deputy Robertson had also elected to come out there with us.
Right.
And he got out with us, and both cars arrived at the same time. And so we jumped out, and Robertson started to approach the people in front of this house. And Stuart said, no, let her do it. She's in trainee.
Right.
So I was kind of like, all right, whatever. I'm 3 weeks into this. I can handle this. That's not a problem.
Right.
I know what I'm doing. It's just talking to people. Which actually, with 2 years in the jail, it's just talking to people. It's not hard. So I walked up and I introduced myself. I said, what's going on today? And there were 3 women and a man, and they're all looking a little upset. And they tell me about this woman and her daughter, and they live in this house, and somebody posted on this woman's Facebook page a post about the bitch is dead. And that someone else and I posted it on her own Facebook, and then had commented on that status a little bit later saying, you know, I raped her daughter, killed the fat bitch, raped her daughter, you should have heard her scream.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of like, well, okay. I mean, that's interesting. It kind of, you know, looks to me like maybe somebody hacked the account, but yeah, let's look into this.
Okay. And that was Dave and Kim Blanchard, Tamarose, and Amy Pinegar, according to your supplemental report, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. I have your supplemental report, by the way. I
I
also
was
have
kind of wondering. I'm like, I know a lot of this stuff is out under the Sunshine Law and stuff, so.
well, I have stuff. We have stuff because the family was participating at one point in time with us for the last 2 years, to be honest.
Yeah.
So we have things that nobody else has, but I have yours, and I have Stan's, and I have Robertson's. I have quite a few of them, but yours definitely is here, so I'm glad to have that.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, so that was the 4 that you were talking to. So you guys, I know there was some issues about getting into the house. So did you stay through that, or
I was there. Well, I mean, let me tell you a little bit more about what I saw and what we did.
Okay, sure.
Because I kind of got up through part of that.
Okay.
So I talked to them, you know, I'm finding out what's going on. I do remember Kim Blanchard saying to me, you know, very tearfully about how Gypsy had so many issues and she was never going to grow up to be our agent.
Right.
And somebody mentioned to me about, yeah, she's got muscular dystrophy, and somebody else mentioned to me like, oh yeah, she's got cancer. And I'm like, wait, how many things does this chick have? Like,
right.
What is going on here? This sounds kind of crazy. So, and my daughter is not nasty.
That's fine. She's fine.
Stuart and I started trying to look through the windows, just because, yeah, clearly we knock on the door, there's no answer. The car is still in the driveway. So
right.
We're walking around the house. We're trying to find out, like, if we can see anything through any of the windows. And the windows all have, like, this faux stained glass stuff on them.
Right.
So you can't see in at all.
Interesting.
As we're on the back side of the house, Robertson stated that they had found that the kitchen window was open.
Mm-hmm.
And it wound up, Corporal Stewart said we were not going to go in there because legally it would be kind of a gray area.
Sure.
Robertson and I disagreed with him, but when somebody is your supervisor,
right,
you can't really disagree with them.
Sure.
So, in the end, David Blanchard went through the window.
Now that's not normal, right?
No.
Okay.
And he just came in, he unlocked the front door.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of them tried to go in there. We stopped them. We told them, no, we cannot do this.
Right. I mean, that's basically breaking and entering. So.
Yeah. And Stuart had kind of warned him, like, if you want to go in through the window, this is something that the homeowner can charge you with.
Right.
So once we got them out, since he had already been in the house, we had him go shut and secure the window,
mm-hmm.
The kitchen window. And then we went ahead and we got everybody back out of the house. We shut the door. I did notice, and of course it's been kind of commented on elsewhere, that she had turned the thermostat down.
Yeah.
And that was something I even noticed right then, because it was a typical Missouri June day. It was very hot. It was very humid.
Right.
And I was wearing all black.
Sure.
So I noticed that rush of cool air from the front door.
Right.
And I kind of thought, wow, it's, they must like it really cold.
Yeah.
And when he came out, once we secured the house again,
mm-hmm.
I asked him what he had seen in there. And he said, the bedroom doors were closed, but I saw Gypsy's wheelchair in the bathroom.
Right.
And so I said, okay, well, that's kind of interesting. And then Alea, and I know she was the daughter of one of them out there.
Amy.
Her mom had kind of let her know what was going on. She came over and she said, well, you know, Gypsy used to send me messages over Facebook from an account that her mom didn't know about. And I said, okay, really? Because at this point, you know, we've kind of determined this is not a check well-being. This, you know, we're not sure where these people are, but circumstances are suspicious.
Sure.
So I went ahead, and we had not yet contacted the detectives at this point. We were about to. We were trying to figure out what was going on. Because one of the neighbors had suggested, well, you know, the Campbell 16 movie theater gives them free admission, so maybe they went to see a movie. And we were trying to contact the movie theater and see if we could determine that they were there because, yeah, but their car's right here, so, okay. But Aaliyah came up and let me know about these messages, and I asked her if she could pull any up. And so she searched through her Facebook messages, and she finally found where Gypsy had talked to her over her messages. And I read that whole long, absolutely nauseating string of text messages, or of Facebook messages.
Sure.
And a lot of it was about how she was basically planning her wedding already.
The wedding in the snow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just all sorts of, you know, and I'm going to meet him at the movie theater at Cinderella.
So there hadn't been anything since her talking about that? Like there hadn't been like her talking about going with Nick anywhere or anything like that? It was mainly up until her meeting him at Cinderella, yeah?
She never actually really even spoke about him directly. She just kind of talked about this guy.
I see.
And so it wasn't, there was the only way I was able, and I was actually the first one to be able to connect him to this case, because at one point in the messages, she talks about if they have children in the future, they're going to name their daughter Bella, and their son will be Nicholas Godejohn Jr.
Right.
And I was kind of like, oh, okay. And then I remember talking on, I don't remember which detective was on call, because we had decided at that point, yeah, we need to escalate this to CID.
Right.
And so I talked on the phone to whoever was on call for CID. And I was like, okay, so this is the name I found connected with all this. I think this is probably someone that is going to be a person of interest for us.
Right.
And we hung out there for a couple, probably like 2.5 hours altogether.
Okay.
I mainly just remember, like I said, I wore all black. I wore multiple layers, including a bullet-resistant vest.
Right.
So and my water bottle was empty. So by the end of it, I was pretty miserable and ready to be done. And so as soon as we could hand the scene off to other people, I was all for it. And I actually didn't even go back to the office to type my report. I basically told Stuart, I'm not typing this until I get a shower, so I'll just do it at home. You'll see it in there tonight.
Right. Which I have his as well. So.
And so I went ahead and, went home. Just for the heck of it, I Googled the name Nicholas Godejohn and found where he'd been charged in Wisconsin for watching porn at a McDonald's.
Right. Rape porn at that.
So, I mean, I was kind of like, okay, well, this is just a really weird case.
Yeah.
Of course, I had a lot of friends working patrol and working in the jail, and I went down to Branson the next day with a friend. And somebody had told me, like, oh, yeah, they found DeeDee's body in the house. I was kind of sorry to have missed out on it, because I'm like, man, I kind of would have liked to have worked a murder scene.
Right.
That would have been interesting.
Did you find it odd that David didn't find it when he walked through?
No, because he said the bedroom doors were closed.
The bedroom doors were
not touch any.
Okay. Okay. Because we've not heard that before as the explanation why. So he didn't look in. He didn't look inside. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. The bedroom doors were closed. The only door that was open was the door to the bathroom, and that's why he would notice her wheelchair.
Her wheelchair in there. Right. But there's like 5 wheelchairs.
Well, and yeah, I mean, I figured, you know, this is entirely possible because I've worked with disabled people before, and I'm like, a lot of them have backup. So
Yeah.
but sorry. Hold on. You're
So
okay.
that, go ahead.
Toddler being a toddler over here.
Okay, it's fine. I understand. So that was your main experience with actually going out to the house. Did you do any follow-up after that, or was that mainly handed off to the detective?
That was all handed off to CID.
Okay, so that would have been when Stan took over. And
yeah, when Detective Hancock and Maholey were the ones that went up to Wisconsin, I believe.
Okay. So then she gets found, she comes back, and you end up in the jail with her again. You go back to the jail at some point and work with her?
Yeah, because I remember I went the next couple of days, I went down to Branson with a friend. I remember we were in the Bath and Body Works at Branson Landing, and another friend called me and they're like, so they found Gypsy and she's in Wisconsin and she can walk. I was like, what? This just took a really strange twist.
Right.
And yeah, you know, I was kind of following it a little bit, and then eventually, partly because of the fact that David Blanchard had entered that house while we were there at the scene, I wound up that Stewart was let go from the Greene County Sheriff's Office. And yeah, and that very much impacted my life because our training program was such that you should have gone back when you go back to phase 4, you go back to whoever you were with in phase 1. Okay. And since my phase 1 officer was no longer there, I had to go back to somebody else who did not get along with me and basically failed me out of the training. And so I went back to the jail.
Oh my.
And of course, by that point, we had Gypsy. She'd been there a few weeks. I think at that point, we even had her on watch still. Or we weren't very far from having taken her. I think we'd moved her up to like a 15-4, 15-5 at that point.
And that would be?
So suicide watch at Greene County Jail is called a 15-3. That's when you get a smock and a blanket. A 15-4 is when you get a uniform without underwear and a blanket. And a 15-5 isn't an official status, but it's one you are allowed to come out in the day room.
Okay.
But we're still keeping an eye on what you're doing and we're still logging it.
Okay.
So
so that changed your life completely. So now you are back at the jail. You never got to get through to do what you wanted to do. Wow.
It knocked me back to the jail and kept me from being able to, because my ultimate goal was to actually go CID and become a detective.
Yeah.
But without being able to be on patrol, that wasn't possible. So
do you get another chance to go back?
I maybe could have, but I knew it was very difficult.
Sure.
So I wasn't really inclined to.
I'm really sorry that happened. That's awful.
I'm not. If I had still been on patrol, various things wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have met my husband. So.
Well, then, you know, I always believe everything happens for a reason. So, I mean, that makes sense. Okay, so there's a lot of different things that we've seen that happened while she was in that that pod. There was some snitching going on. So you talked about the fact that she caused a lot of drama. So I'd really like to hear about your experiences there, because I think a lot of people have no idea what happened in that time frame. I mean, I have some stuff, like I have the reports of people talking about her snitching them out for drugs, and I talked with Patty, who was Mike Stanfield's right hand, and she was like, Mike was livid with her many times and told her to shut her mouth, you know. So I'd love to hear your take on some of that and what she was like when she was in there in the beginning.
Yeah, well, she was on T2, and thank you. You don't need to contribute, baby.
She's so cute.
Somebody wants to be interviewed.
She every time she sees Mama's on a call, she's like, I need to get involved here.
That's okay. That's okay. That's fine.
So, yeah, she was in T2. T2 was kind of our higher classification of offenders. So T1 was lower classification females, basic drug charges and things like that. T2, you were going to have more of your murders and assaults and things like that. And at first, I can't remember who she snitched on. She did snitch on someone. And there was always snitching in there. You put a bunch of women, like,
Pettiness comes out.
Up there was like 60, probably about 55, 65. You put that many women together, there is going to be snitching because they are all telling each other stuff and telling on each other, and it's ridiculous. It's drama.
Yeah.
So she did snitch someone out fairly early on. And we were kind of like, look, while we appreciate finding out this stuff is happening in our pod, like, you're going to have to learn how to jail. Because you're going to be here a while, and you need to get along with people.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it wasn't so much that she snitched. Honestly, people snitch to us all the time. It was the fact that she told somebody else she snitched.
Oh,
right.
Like, if you're going to snitch, don't brag about it. That doesn't help.
Right. Well, that's like one of those things, like, I always tell my kids, don't insult me with a crappy lie. If you're going to lie, do it well, like,
right.
Same kind of thing. Like, don't snitch out and then go brag about it. Like, really?
Yeah.
Just so she has no concept of real life.
Yeah. And a lot of people in there really did.
Yeah.
So that, and I mean, all of this stuff about her being very sexual, we had a problem with that in jail. We had to be careful with her, with who she was celled with, because we did have problems. I mean, we heard the rumors about, so-and-so and so-and-so are lovers, and that was fairly common. There were a lot of people that did the whole gay for the stay thing. And she was one that we realized, like, yeah, we kind of have to, between her high profile and just her behavior, we had to be super careful about how we kept her in the cells.
So was she showing sexual signs in the pod?
Not openly in the pod.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, they were all pretty good. Hey, Sadie, off of there. Sorry, I have to yell at the dog.
It's okay.
Anyway, no, they would go to the recreation yard up on T5, and it's an enclosed yard with kind of a ventilated side.
Mm-hmm.
So it's what passes for fresh air in the jail there.
Right.
And we would hear reports about, and at the time our camera coverage on T5 wasn't as good as it was later, but we would hear reports about stuff that she was doing in the stairwells. Because like I said, people snitched on each other all the time. But she tried to do stuff in the stairwells. She'd do stuff up in the rec yard. We did have problems up in the rec yard because Godejan was in the T5 pod.
Right.
And went to the rec yard almost every day. And even though we searched people before and after we sent them from the rec yard where you were supposed to, we found out that they were passing notes to each other up there.
Yeah, I heard about that. Like, there was something about her writing on a wall at one point in time. So do you think these things involved him, or it was because there was no contact between the two of them at the same time, right?
There was no direct contact involved. In fact, we were always kind of careful about, if we had to send one out, where is the other one currently at? So, and just in general, it's a standing rule of the jail. Males and females were not supposed to be speaking to one another.
Sure. Not to mention co-conspirators. So
right.
Wow. So you guys did have them passing notes back and forth between each other.
And from what I remember, I believe he was the one that initiated that.
Mm-hmm.
But there was definitely, I mean, she was reciprocating. She was going right with it.
Now, do you think, I mean, did you see like a still like a lovingness towards him, or did you see maybe a shift in that, or,
At first, it seemed like she still kind of cared somewhat. But I definitely saw that shift in the end. But honestly, and I mean, I was used to seeing all sorts of people in the jail. She is one of the best manipulators I have ever seen.
really? Tell us why you think that.
That's very interesting to hear so soon.
She was able to get other people just basically, and I noticed some of the inmates, they caught on to this. She could get some of them eaten out of the palm of her hand. And others were like, I don't want anything to do with her. That girl's batshit crazy. And as an officer, you have a lot of time to sit there and observe people.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would see her target people. I would see her work them over if they had something that she wanted, or if she thought that they could give her some sort of advancement.
Interesting. Huh. So do you feel like maybe that snitch out was really her way of thinking that maybe she would have a way out of this?
I think she thought it was going to help her. I think she thought, maybe it would earn her some brownie points.
Yeah.
Because the officers on the whole were not a big fan of her.
Huh. Interesting. Okay. And then, so, it's become apparent to us that this is really not about medical abuse of why she did what she did. It was more about being there for being not able to have a boyfriend. And so did she manipulate the medical stuff with you guys at all? Or did she just kind of drop it? Did she go back and forth? Anything like that? Like as far as manipulative tactics there?
I don't know how much I can say about that because I am still technically, I think, under HIPAA.
Okay.
But I will say that as far as I can remember, I don't really remember having much to do with her and the medical department. I don't really remember, I think initially we may have taken her down for a couple of brief checks or something, but it was not a regular thing. And I also know that I was one of the very few female commissioned officers in the jail.
Mm-hmm.
And other than the one time I walked her over the court, which anybody could have done, I did not take her anywhere. And usually if anybody, and of course it was just kind of luck on the draw if you had someone that needed to go to a medical appointment on your shift. But I don't remember taking her anywhere. Mm-hmm. And I would have been the first one tapped for something like that on my shift because I was the only commissioned female.
That's interesting.
That's interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So the drama, I mean, can you elaborate any more on the different things the drama that she caused? You said there was just a lot of drama that was happening surrounding her being in that pod.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was mainly stuff like the initial snitching out. She watching her work people over and then watching people realize they've been worked over by her, which is not something you do if you want to have any long-term friendships, which don't really exist in jail. But like I said, this was our higher classification. These were people that were often there for 1.5, 2 years, waiting for their trials.
Now, did her parents come and visit her at all during any of this?
I think they may have come up during the
trial period,
when she has various court appearances and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I seem to vaguely remember hearing about her being approved for special visits for family from out of town. Mm-hmm. But I didn't work visitation, so I wasn't the person to cover that stuff.
Did she get any special treatment, like you said, okay, so she got special visitations for people out of town? Any other special treatment that she requested or got, or you felt like she tried to manipulate?
Oh, she tried to manipulate all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. But she she didn't get special treatment. We didn't do that. Everybody tried to manipulate us.
Right.
Even the special visits, like, that's not anything we wouldn't do for anybody else.
Right. Okay. Makes sense.
So,
But she definitely, you felt like she tried. So what is your take on her personally? I mean, you kind of told me in your thing that you're not extremely fond of her, which is one of the reasons why you wanted to were willing to talk to me, because she doesn't seem to very much like me. She kind of did the same thing to me. I mean, she manipulated me for a very long time, in being friendly and helpful, and then anytime I expressed any type of concern or care, we're talking about her filing a grievance against you personally. So go ahead and finish that story.
oh yeah, I just, I had an inmate come up and mention and ask me what I'd done over the weekend, and I mentioned that I had gone to VisionCon, and the inmate clearly went and told Gypsy, because they all knew Gypsy had gone to that in the past. And Gypsy came up to the desk a few minutes later, all bright and bubbly and cheerful, and doing that really little high-pitched voice. And, which, by the way, drove us nuts. Like, my best friend also worked at the jail, and we would talk to each other, and we would go, oh my God, that voice. I can't stand that voice. I want to.
Now, was it a voice that you heard all the time, or only when she was really, really trying to?
Yeah, like, did it get worse at certain times?
If she was trying to play innocent or, you know, trying to manipulate people, so it was there most of the time.
Okay. Anyway, so her cute, bubbly voice, she comes up. Yeah.
The high-pitched voice, like, it's so innocent. And she wasn't the first inmate to have done that either. We had another inmate that used to do that all the time, and it drove us equally insane with her too. But she comes up to the desk and she goes, I heard you went to VisionCon. I used to love going to VisionCon. And I just looked at her and I was stayed really flat, and I'm like, yeah, I know.
Boy, do I know.
It was probably like the most hilarious moment I ever had with her, because she visibly deflated. And she just walked away. And then she tried to file a grievance against me, claiming that I knew her on the street because we had both attended VisionCon together in the past.
Oh, wow.
Oh, interesting.
If you have something like that in the jail, if you have that sort of conflict of interest, like you know someone
Right.
from before they're in jail, you're not supposed to work their pod.
Right.
And that happens all the time. You know, officers would be like, yo, I knew this guy from high school, and I don't think it'll be a problem if I work the pod. And they write a memo on it, and you document it. And I had done that myself with people that I'd known.
Sure.
And so in briefing a couple days later, my sergeant's like, hey, what's with this grievance from Blanchard? Why is she claiming that you knew each other on the street? And I just started laughing. And I'm like, because he found out that we both attended the same convention, along with a few thousand other people.
Right. You and 2,000 of your closest friends.
Yeah. So I'm like, I didn't know who she was there. I don't remember ever paying attention to some chick in a wheelchair. You know, I was doing my own thing at this. But it was funny because it was her trying to prevent me. She didn't like me. So it was her trying to prevent me from working her pod.
She couldn't manipulate you, and she knew it. She couldn't manipulate you, and she knew that.
Oh, yeah.
And that was her chance at trying to make you her BFF, but it didn't work. So now, that didn't work. So now I got to get rid of her.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. She tried to manipulate me. She couldn't. And so she was trying to prevent me from working that pod. Because had that grievance gone through, that's exactly what would have happened. I would have not been able to work that pod.
Right.
Right.
We only had 2 female pods, so even if you did have a separation from someone, it had to be really good before you were able to work other places.
Right.
Basically, as a female officer, I pretty much rotated between T1 and T2.
Jeez.
So, yeah, it was just really funny to me that that's what she tried to do.
Yeah.
So eventually, we did kind of she had a long-term cellie that stayed pretty consistent. And they seemed to get along well, and the other cellie wasn't interested in doing the gay for the state thing, so that helped. At least as far as we could tell, she wasn't interested in it. And then, yeah, it was basically just, and Gypsy would sit there and manipulate people, and we'd hear that little high-pitched voice.
So something come out today that we're kind of, maybe you had heard of this, where she admitted to her cellmate about, and told them basically that Nick had said if they ever had a girl, that when she became of age, he would rape her because he was into incest. Have you ever heard that story?
I've never heard that story. Yeah, I saw that the other day. I hadn't seen that. Can't say I'm surprised.
Do you think that was her just saying that to him, if she did? I mean, because it is in the report. I have it in the report too. Do you think that was her just saying something like that to be shocking and manipulate this person? Or do you think that that was, I mean, because the person, it was one of the people she had snitched on. So could they have just been angry and made it up? Could she have made it up to make them be more, I don't know, sympathetic to her? I just don't know. I don't even understand. Like,
I would kind of like to, I'd like to see the report, or just to get to, it's a report from the jail or a report by CID?
You're muted, Fancy. I didn't know if you knew that.
in a report, I believe it came from Stan. Let me see if I can find it here. I know it's because it was released today in that group that I met you in.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a conversation that they had with Markayla. And I know that I have it. I just haven't, I don't know where it is in this case index. But yeah, it was definitely something that happened in that pod right after. And it was one of the people that she did try to get in trouble at one point.
Evidently she was something over her phone time or something.
If that inmate is the one that I'm thinking of, I'm pretty sure it's she was one of those that was a little bit prone to getting other people in trouble anyway.
Okay.
That specific person?
Like I said, if it's the one that I'm thinking of, and I'm pretty sure I know who that was.
It was like a Markayla or a Michaela, something like that.
Yeah. I can almost, I'm thinking her last name was Wise or something close. Maybe that's a different one I know.
See if I have a
I thought it was Lutz. Lutz.
Oh, Lutz.
I think
okay, so that's a different one than who I'm thinking of.
There
no,
was, because I know so she did something on Amanda Flores.
Yeah, she snitched on Flores.
And then, let's see. So Stan talked with Flores. And then there was Mariah Rodriguez.
Oh, yeah. I remember Rodriguez.
Yeah, it's a supplement report. Greene County Sheriff's Office.
Here it is, Markayla Lutz.
Yeah, Markayla Lutz, and it's got her information. And this was done on 9/2/15.
Yeah. Yeah, that wasn't that long after the whole.
Just a couple months, no.
And that was right after I had come back to the jail.
So it said, let's see. It says, Lutz said Gypsy told her how she set the thermostat to 40 degrees. She talked about how Gypsy had cleaned up the blood from her mother's bedroom to the bathroom with carpet cleaner and wipes. And Lutz went on to talk about how Nicholas was going to rape Claudinia or Gypsy. And she talked about how Nicholas was into incest. Lutz said Gypsy told her she was raped vaginally and anally by Nicholas after the murder. Lutz said Gypsy was not innocent and she was a sick person. Lutz said Gypsy had gone into her mother's bedroom after she murdered and cleaned up blood from her mom's bed to the bathroom.
I mean, we always had the saying that, an inmate's lying if their mouth is moving, but
Right.
actually, yeah,
A lot of that is true.
and with all the stuff that happened there and that time period, I believe it. Gypsy was a little bit more open towards the beginning of her stay. She didn't realize just how quickly, I don't think she realized just how quickly people are willing to turn on you in jail.
Right. She also talks about calling the cab, and then it does come down here. So Gypsy told several of the female inmates on Tower 2 about how Lutz was strong-arming her for phone time. Lutz said she never used Gypsy's phone time and denied the allegations. Gypsy told Lutz if she and Nicholas would have had a baby girl together, Nicholas wanted to have sex with the daughter because he was into incest. Gypsy had cried about Nicholas, but she never cried about her mother's death. Lutz said Amanda Flores had told her Gypsy talked about how she planned different ways to kill her mother. Some of the ways she planned to kill her mother was by strangling, rape, poisoning, and stabbing. Lutz said Gypsy told her she had paid for everything, the bus ticket, the hotel room, both nights, and the cab fees. So I kind of feel like
Everything else in that we know is fact.
wouldn't have been known at that point, right?
What would have been known at that point?
I mean, the details that she's giving about the murder would not have been known any other way to her than Gypsy saying something, correct?
Yeah, no, they wouldn't have been known.
Because that was September. They were still not releasing much of anything at that point.
Plus, she's in jail, so how would she even see it anyway, right? Like, yeah.
Well, and at that time, I think that was before, that was before they had tablets or anything, so they didn't, and we'd give them the newspaper, but I know we always tried to look through the newspaper to make sure that nobody in our pod was mentioned in the newspaper. So during that time period, there were a lot of pages of the newspaper missing thanks to Gypsy. So, yeah, like she
would
would.
Lutz have been one of her girlfriends in prison?
What?
Would Lutz have been one of her girlfriends in prison?
Well, in jail.
Well, I mean, in jail, yeah.
Maybe. I think at that point, she really wasn't doing that too much. She was still kind of, it took them a few months to really acclimate.
Okay.
I'm
just wondering how quickly that part of her personality came out.
I remember, because I do remember, let's see, I think Lutz and Flores were both cellies with Gypsy. And then the whole drug thing went on, which wasn't unusual with Flores.
Right. She basically, I mean, it says in here, in Michaela's words, she basically said that I was in cell number 215 with Gypsy during this time. She told me several things about the murder scene of her mom.
Yeah.
I mean, she has a lot of details here, Brandy, like a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You have to scan that over and send it to me so I can finish reading that.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if that was completely accurate.
Wow.
I honestly wouldn't. Like I said, a lot of the times if they think they have, because especially 215, that was a segregation cell. That was one we used for inmates that were segregated where they were on watch, not in general population. So they would have had 23 hours a day in that cell. Even when they were out of that cell, they would not have been allowed to talk to GP. So they spent a lot of time talking to each other, and often when you do that, you say things you don't necessarily want to say.
Yeah.
And I think in this case, that's probably part of what happened. Probably also, she was still kind of new to the jail. She didn't realize how quickly people would turn on you. Otherwise, I think the snitching incident would have never happened.
I don't think she understands how real people work in the world. I mean, she really doesn't.
No, she really didn't. And to begin with, she really did not understand. We always talk about how people have to learn how to jail.
Yeah.
And she did not know how to jail.
Right.
And so, yeah, I would actually say that's probably going to be fairly accurate, because Lutz was one that she'd have turned on her own mother if it got her an advantage.
Right. Right. Understandable. Okay. So I'm looking at your supplemental report. I just wanted to go over a couple things. So you said that you talked with the Blanchards, stated that they thought that Gypsy and DeeDee had no relatives still living. You were talking to them about that.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you over the
It's
The
okay.
daughter.
The babbling of the baby. Yeah. You said in your supplemental report about talking to David and Kim about thinking that none of them thought that the Blanchards had any relatives still living. Did they elaborate on that in any way that you remember significantly? Because we've had some different accounts of what they were told, what people were told. So we're just trying to see if you heard any of those things.
As far as I remember, yeah, they mentioned that there weren't, I feel like I can't remember if they were the ones that mentioned they'd moved up to Springfield after Katrina, or if that was something I'd learned later.
No,
because
it's what you did put here. Yeah, they stated they had moved. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, because I learned some things later, and sometimes it gets a little bit muddled. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that they were talking, because I talked to Kim a lot. Kim was very concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And she was talking about how they had moved up, that there were no relatives, and that they were, that everybody in the neighborhood kind of just felt like they needed to watch out for them, and that, they were just, they had so many issues. And like I said, I distinctly remember Kim just very, very tearfully, hardly able to contain herself, saying, "Oh, Gypsy won't grow up to be our age."
Right. And then you have in your report that David told you about being involved in running the Vision Con, and that Gypsy had arranged to meet a man at Vision Con, and the man had convinced her to steal money from her mother's purse and run away with her. Her mother had been able to find out what was going on and prevent anything from happening. Do you remember anything about that, or basically any more details of what they might have told you?
No, that was basically all he told me. If I'd had any more details, it would have been in the report.
Interesting that she tried to convince somebody to steal money. That.
Yeah, but that's kind of, especially, of course, hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah.
But that's very much kind of her thing, is convincing people to do the things that she wants.
Right. Okay, and then one last thing, you talk about Alinda Young and the fact that she at one point in time had been given a key to the house, and that there was some issues with certain people. Did you ever find out who the certain people were and what those issues might have been?
No, I never did find out what that was. And I really wish I would have, because honestly, I'd kind of forgotten about that.
Well, I know that there was at one point in time a robbery report filed, and I'm wondering if this has some indication to do with that.
Yeah, and I found out about that later, and I was kind of like, well, maybe that was part of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I'm trying to remember if there was any connection there. I don't remember at the time having any.
Well, thank you so much, Kate. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us, or anything else you feel like we should know? You've been very helpful, very insightful, I can tell you that.
Very much. Thank you so much for doing this with us.
I mean, the only other thing, I never, because I dealt with Godejohn some, but not a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I basically just limited myself to, I didn't work T5 because I was female. So I was limited to just doing breaks up there most of the time.
Yeah.
I will say, though, he was one of the only ones that we consistently had to remind to shower.
Yeah. I've seen the hygiene issues. It's common for
Considering
somebody.
they didn't take a shower from the time of the murder to the time they were arrested is pretty indicative of hygiene issues.
Yeah, well, it's also in his type of personality that he displays, this enlightened being and all this stuff. It's a very common problem with that type of psychopathy. It's something that they had a problem with Manson with as well. So
yeah, and I know the officers that I had talked to who were working up there. He didn't come up, and I would check his special housing log occasionally. He didn't come up a lot. He was actually pretty good up there. But although we had to keep him up to T5. T5 is where we house the child molesters. But we knew we couldn't put him with the other murderers because they would have eaten him alive.
Yeah.
But,
hey, do you happen to know if any of the pod people that did work the pod where he was would be willing to speak with us? Do you have contact with any of them that might want to or be able to talk with us?
I mean, I still have contact with a lot of people that worked there, but I don't know. I might reach out and see if anybody has any memories of dealing with him up there. But he was basically one that, as far as I remember, he kept to himself. He went out to the rec yard basically every day. Talked to some of the inmates in there. Like I said, tried to pass messages to Gypsy.
Yeah. I'm just interested if he kept the ruse of the DID at that point, or if he had dropped it at that point, or just interested in some of those things, like because I mean, he's rather interesting in all of this, even though he's such a small piece of it. His part is extremely interesting because right. I mean, obviously she has a reason for what she did. I mean, he basically, like I've said this week, she basically designed her own murderer, but for him to get involved in the level and to do the different things that he did is very interesting, you know.
My impression of this whole affair is I think she got really damn lucky. Yeah. I think she kind of had an idea of what she was wanting to do.
Yeah.
Years in advance.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And she was starting to form plans then, and she just happened to luck into someone who had his own issues and was dealing with his own stuff and was willing to do it.
Yep.
Well, yeah, when he starts a conversation off that he has a personality named Victor that's a 700-year-old vampire that likes to kill, that's her open opportunity right there. I just found somebody.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
That was so.
I mean, I think that was like the equivalent of seeing the dollar signs. Yeah, I don't know.
Right, yeah.
Really know how to,
absolutely.
Because
well, this has been a very eye-opening conversation for me. I think my whole thought process has officially changed.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll say
you, Brandy. I told you.
I know, and I've been fighting you on it for weeks now. I mean, I haven't wanted to give in to that. I've wanted to believe the best.
I told you. I have
been predicting that in about 2027 or so, we are going to hear her name in the news again.
I don't think it'll be that long.
I don't either.
Well, she's a attention whore, so.
And everybody now, as soon as she's released within a year, there's going to be something.
So, okay, so I know you've been following along and you see a lot of this stuff. What is your impression of Christy and Rod?
My impression is that they're money grubbing whores. I mean,
okay. Well, you didn't hold any punches there, Kate.
I don't. Well, I mean,
I'm dying. I'm dead.
Okay, my father's in law enforcement. He's very blunt too. I understand. He's very perceptive and very blunt. So I understand.
So, like, why? You know, it's not that hard to have contact with somebody if you really want to.
Well, yeah, but I also think, like, my eyes have been open to the fact of, like, this whole media thing and everything. Like, if you were, I don't know, if my kid murdered somebody and it was a big deal like this is, I don't know that I would have done an entire, like, press tour like they have done and toted it out over and over and over again. My only thought process is that was to create a narrative that was sympathetic. That's the only thing I can think of.
Well, and here's kind of what I have in comparison. We had in the jail a local murderer named Craig Wood. Craig Wood kidnapped and killed I think she was 10 at the time, a girl named Haley Owens.
Mm-hmm. I think I've heard this.
And yeah, and so he was, it was a horrific case. You know, everybody in the area knew about this case. We still, you know, everybody knows about Haley Owens years later. And his parents, of course, they're from the area. Mm-hmm. They got that reputation of, oh, those are Craig Wood's parents.
Right.
And they never enjoyed that. I watched them come. They would come and they would visit him every week.
Yeah.
And I watched them come for the years that he was in our jail. And I watched how they aged through this process.
Yeah.
And I watched how it just beat them down.
Mhm.
And I would see them come in for their visit, and I would just feel so absolutely terrible for them, because you could see what a toll this was taking on them.
Yes.
And, you know, any other time that we had, I mean, we didn't have too many really notorious murderers in our jail. I mean, we kept murderers in there all the time, but when you see their family come in, they're not normally like, yeah, let's get the press, let's get the attention. They're like, this is just really awful, and please don't mention my name.
Right. Right. Yeah, I've
So-
seen it. Like, I didn't see it until I saw it. Like, it's this
The last few months have been really bad. Really bad.
huh?
The last few months have just been really bad with the attention seeking, and
Yeah.
and of course, as soon as our focus changed a little bit on our view on how things actually happened, is when people threw fits and want out of the spotlight, but yet we're going to call and do an interview, you know.
Right.
Right.
Well, our relationship with them changed drastically when we got our hands on the interrogation video. I've asked for it for over 2 years, and it was always some weird excuse as to why I couldn't get it. And then when I got it, they accused me of all kinds of stuff to get it, which I'm like, it's a public document. I don't even know what you're accusing me of. And then basically, like, they said Gypsy was going to call and tell the police all kinds of stuff, like that I obtained it this way or that way. I'm like, it's a public document. What part do you not understand? Like,
Right.
and so, I mean, it just turned from there. Like, and the fact that I released it pissed them off. Like, I mean, they were all absolutely livid, which really began to show me that it's not about truth and honesty. It's about this narrative that they've been trying to really, really push about her. And I think I don't know if that's self-preservation on their own part, or if that's really because they want Gypsy to not be, you know, viewed this way, but I don't know.
I nobody likes being portrayed as a shitty person.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
when you are in the media because your daughter or stepdaughter went and murdered her own mother, and you were nowhere even near to being involved in her life,
Yeah.
well, guess what? You look like a shitty person.
You do.
So I feel like a lot of what has gone on with them has been, you know, trying to make up for that perception.
Trying to cover up the bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
But because they're kind of associated with this, and because this has taken on, I mean, I realized how big this was when I'm a big fan of everything British, and I found this on a British website. I found the news article about this case, and I was like, oh damn, this is big.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I realized then, you know, and then I heard about all the Dr. Phil nonsense and everything, which didn't really surprise any of us. Like, all the officers, because we're all friends with each other. We work with each other, and
Right.
especially the females, we tend to band together. My best friend still works there.
Yeah.
And it was all of our opinion that Gypsy was one of the biggest attention-seeking whores we'd ever seen.
Yeah.
And so seeing, like, the Dr. Phil interview and seeing, like, yeah, I definitely got the impression from Christy that she's right in there with the attention-seeking.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I'm wondering, a little light bulb just went off. I'm wondering if, you know, she got all this attention medically, sick kid, sick this, sick that, poor baby, all these things, got all this attention. If she started discovering that there wasn't so much coming anymore because it was old news, so now we need to be a vixen and get the attention. I'm wondering if that's why it shifted like it did so quickly.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, it just,
She
it makes
loves attention.
sense. It makes sense.
Yeah, she loves attention. She was always trying to insert herself into the groups, the biggest groups, and the biggest table full of people, and get what attention she could. And that was something we all noticed quite a bit. And I mean, my theory has always been that once she gets out of prison, she is, first of all, she's going to try to milk her experience as much as she can.
Yeah.
Which, you know, already has been happening.
Right. Well, and I'm seeing that in, we're running out of time again. That's fine. But I'm seeing that again in what she's saying. You know, like I told you, Brandy, I said that she had said to me before about being an advocate for these children. And then she was like to Dawn, I'm not doing that because I'm going to work on me and I'm just going to live my life and blah, blah, blah. And now it's back to, now that she's back doing her interviews again, now she's back to this whole, I'm going to be a child advocate for children who da-da-da-da-da. And I feel like that's again to look at how great I really am, instead and it's another ploy.
Take away from some of the bad that we were discovering, some of the things we've uncovered lately.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
well, it's
man.
also a ploy to come out and have a reason to be in the press still and to be interesting still. Like I'm seeing this, and it's a setup. I've
Loves
seen
the
it for a
attention.
while.
She loves it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, my line of thought has been that once she gets out of prison, she's going to do what she can to milk this to get attention, and then when that no longer works, she's going to find some place to move. She's going to steal an identity or create a new one or something like that, and she's going to start the scam over again. And she because here's the thing, and I mean, yeah, what DeeDee did to her was terrible. I will never deny that. It was awful. And I, especially as a mother myself, I could never imagine putting my child through that.
Right.
That's just so disgusting. But
She created a monster.
she did create a monster.
She's her own murderer. I mean,
Right.
Gypsy 100% enjoys this. She enjoys the attention. She enjoys manipulating people.
Yep.
She loves this stuff, which is why she's doing things like announcing that she's engaged, and no, she's not engaged, and then she's engaged again. Who the hell would care?
right. Who would even know? Who would even
Well, and that's like the new thing with the picture with the hair and Christy playing everybody. How dare you share this? This is only for this group. Well, then her best friend's sharing it elsewhere in the group that hates her. It's all a big ruse to keep the attention on Gypsy. It's a freaking haircut. Who gives a damn?
Right. It's all about the attention, and it's just stupid nonsense. But I think once she gets out and she's not able to get the attention she wants, she's just going to work on manipulating people and scamming people all over again. So that's why I say watch out for her 2027 or so.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's going to get out there and someone will pick up on it. Because where is she now? She's in prison. Who else is in prison? People who are really damn good at manipulating other people.
Yep.
Stealing identity.
She's just
And
her
they
skill.
are real.
Yes.
Right, and well, they are hardened criminals when they go in. They are when they come out.
And I find it very interesting that it's only been me and other people that have said something about her getting help, not her own family pushing to get her help. They could have had a therapist come in and talk to her. They could have.
That's the first thing I did.
Yeah. No. Instead, they've just allowed her to be whatever she's doing. And now that we are saying something about it, they're like, oh, yeah, we're going to look into that. Well, you know why they were going to look into it? Because my friend who is a lawyer suggested it. And then Christy, and this was after the split, after we had stopped talking with them on a regular basis. And Gypsy had thrown all her fits and sent all those letters to Natasha and done all of that. Like, literally, you know, and who does that? Like, why are you sending all these letters to a Facebook group? And, oh, my dearest and closest friends. Oh, for the love of God, they're not your dearest and closest friends, lady. Like, literally.
Like, these are the people who are watching the train wreck happen, okay?
Exactly. Thank you.
But she loves the attention.
All of this was finally where I said, do you know you can get an injunction so that she can have a therapist visit her? Oh, okay. Well, I'll work on that. But nothing since, you know, still. So I feel
as a mother, that's the first thing I would have done.
As a mother, that's the first thing I would have done. Right.
Well,
and I went to trial.
Even at Greene County, we offered mental health services. We had 2 psychiatrists on staff. We had mental health interns who would come visit, and it's been a few years, but as far as I remember, I don't think Gypsy ever really had any of that.
And the one thing that she says she's done is the group therapy thing, where they're doing the group
Yeah.
probably a round table discussion kind of thing, and she had to
But
write a letter to her mom, and that's been all that she's admitted to doing.
And we had people, like, we would have therapists come in and do one-on-one work, you know, the interns, or occasionally, and for someone as high profile as her, I think our actual psychiatrist would have probably come in and handled
So they would have been jumping at the chance to do this case.
And she wasn't asking. That's very telling. So let me ask you one last thing, because we're about to run out of time on the second time. Your opinion of all of this, do you feel like she had knowledge prior to 2015, like that, of what was going on with her mother and what was going on with her?
like that this was all a scam, or
Yes, or that she was more complicit in the whole thing with the doctors and all of that than she tells.
Oh, I 100% believe that. Now, you know, necessarily as a young child, no, not necessarily then.
Right, but in their later teens.
She made it to her late teens. I think she's not stupid.
No.
She's not stupid.
No.
And I think any normal person would probably be going, wait, why am I getting this done?
Yeah.
What is this about? And she probably didn't want to say anything to the doctors or other health professionals because her mom had her under her control.
Yeah,
I get
absolutely.
that. I do.
Yeah, I do too.
But, you know, I'm sure her mom, you know, I'm sure she heard her mom saying, well, she's got this going on, she's got that going on. Like, I'm sure she knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, she likes to manipulate people. She likes to scam people. She loves it.